Hello and welcome to the third round of the race IndyAM Championship by Formula Sim Racing. We're here at Sebring for a 31-lap feature race here for the AM category. Later on this evening we will be there for the Pro category, so do go and check that out. Yeah, this is the IndyAM Championship brought to you by SimLab 3D App and IMB Raceway, and I'll be your commentator Cameron Roger. Today joining me is Ewan O'Leary.
Yeah, good afternoon, Cam. Good afternoon to everybody. We're back after a bit of a week off. It wasn't a week off for these guys. They had a bit of a test race down at Apple Valley. But yeah, we're here for Sebring, the bumpiest of bumpy circuits. And it's going to be a very good race, a very different circuit to what we've really seen so far. But again, another circuit with real character, a lot of bumps and different road surfaces and all sorts going on here. It's going to be a difficult race. Not entirely sure how it's going to play out really here either, because I've never really seen an IndyCar race at Sebring ever, really, to be honest. So I'll be interested to see how it actually works out and how these cars actually race it, because I know in an endurance setup, Sebring is a very good circuit.
Yeah, and the reason why you haven't really seen it is because in real life they don't actually race here. They do testing here, but I believe they don't actually use the full layout for that either. So it is quite a unique layout. However, it is one of the better track quality tracks there are in R-Factor 2, there being one of the more recent DLCs coming out about 2 years ago now. But as you see on the screen there, we've got the schedule. So here, 11th of October, we've got the Sebring International Raceway. Next weekend, we will be back for the final road course of the season at VIR on the 18th of October, before finishing the season with two ovals, firstly at Apple Valley on the 1st of November, before the final Indy 300 on the 8th of November, which I'm looking forward to immensely because that is going to be such an awesome event. However, we do have some racing to go before that, and especially for these IndyAM guys, their season finishes in Apple Valley. The actual championship itself finishes in Apple Valley. And as we see here, Tomasz Vak is leading the way from Ferris Stanley. However, Ferris Stanley is not here today, so that is going to open up that championship fight a little bit. Then we've got Simon Fröhlich in third place, who is a little bit behind Tomasz, but he'll be wanting to try and claw some points back, as there's only 3 races remaining for these IndyAM guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Only 5 rounds in this championship. Quite a short one, but obviously it's not one of those long FSR seasons that goes over a whole year. So it's always to be expected, of course. But yeah, only 3 rounds to go now. And with Ferris Stanley not here today, you would have to say that probably puts him out of the running, despite the fact he's only 3 points off Tomasz Vak in the lead. But there's a lot of guys in behind who are still in contention. I think everybody is pretty much still in contention. If you've got points on the board at this stage, then I think you're in contention, to be honest, with the amount of points still on the table, amount of racing still to go, and how close this point system is means that the championship always stays close, which is always a good thing, especially for a spectator, keeping it very, very close right up until the very final race in Apple Valley. I think it is going to go right down to that final race, so pretty much an impossibility that is going to be sewn up before then. So yeah, that makes it very, very entertaining from a spectator's point of view, at least.
Yeah, the point system really means that you have to, finish every race, to be honest, because there's 35 points for the win, then it goes down to 30, 28, 27, and then it's 1 point all the way down, basically, to 30th place. Which means if you miss out on one race, you're going to miss out on loads of points, because even here, there's 10 drivers here today. It means even if you finish last, you're getting 21 points. That is only 14 points off the lead. So it keeps you really close, really in contention. And as you say, when we get to Apple Valley, it is going to be almost impossible that someone is going to have such a big lead by that point. But we're just getting onto the qualifying laps now. And we are on board with the number 47 Tomasz Vak as he comes into this final corner. Such a tricky corner because you have this kink first before you brake all over the bumps. There's a bump right in the middle there. As you can see, he's twitching his wheel all over the place before running it out wide, getting as close to the wall on the exit, I should say. They are allowed to go past that white line. And now we get to the line, and where is he going to put himself? He goes up to provisional pole position by, over 0.3 of a second to Simon Fröhlich. So he is looking pretty good right now.
He is. It's all looking very close, though. Stopowski just makes it even closer. They're going into third place. Brantholm is only 7/10 back, despite the fact he's in 6th place, which is a little bit remarkable, really, considering how this field is right now. Very, very close indeed between everybody. Just in the high 144s at the moment. I'm not really sure what we're going to look to for Pro later on. Maybe even a a low 43 if we're lucky. But we'll see how much faster they are. Because obviously it does step up a little bit, but obviously it's not quite. It can be a bit of a small margin sometimes, so we'll see about that one. But the guys just making their way out on another outlap, it looks like, at the moment, with everybody going out at the same time, coming back in and then outlapping again at the same time. They've all got 3 runs, of course, as they always do. 1 outlap, 1 in lap, and 1 flying lap for every 3 sets of runs, if you see what I mean. It makes 9 laps in the end, but 3 flying laps at this one. They've just had the first ones in, and obviously it's only going to get quicker from here on in.
And interestingly, Vac and Frelick, they both went out and pressed escape, so they have used 4 laps already, which means they won't be able to complete their 3rd run. So this next run for them will be their final attempt, because if they go out again, they won't have enough laps to complete that 3rd run. So that is quite interesting that those guys did that. Branholm has done the same as well. He's also on 4 laps, so those guys will only get 2 runs, which is why it's very crucial to keep on top of your lap count, because as we mentioned, you will get disqualified and you will start from the back of the grid, which is obviously not really where you want to be starting. Even in a slightly smaller field, it is still going to be a bit difficult to get past some of those drivers. And as we saw last time, Ferris Stanley, he got pole position, but then he went over his lap, so he went to the back of the grid and he let Thomas Vac just walk away with it. Thomas won so easily last time out in Portland because, fair enough, he was the quickest driver on the day, but he also didn't have any challenge from Stanley, who was having to come through the grid. So it's very important that you do these laps correctly.
It is indeed. We're on board with Andrea Hamazoa at the moment, going through turn 1, getting as close to that wall as possible, letting it run out wide, but keeping it off of the dirt through turn 1, and now braking into... Oh, it's a bit of a slide on the entry, bit of a slide through the middle as well. Not the best couple of corners there for Adrian Harazoa, and then out of turn 5 and around the long Big Bend corner, which is kind of a straight, really. A good opportunity down here into the hairpin for an overtaking manoeuvre, if you can pull it off. Adrian Harazoa now just making his way through the corner, nice on the traction, just wiggling the wheel just a little bit, but pretty good in the end. Not a bad exit, and going just a little bit quicker through the first sector as well, despite the fact that he did have that massive wobble on the way into turn 3. Now through Cunningham corner. Oh, it's a bit of a slide on the exit of that one as well. Not quite getting the traction down in the way he wanted to. And now through Tower corner. Important to get this run right, but he's not quite done it. Misses the apex on the right hand side there, and he's going to lose a little bit of speed as they head up to Le Mans. This 3 corners kind of almost chicane, I guess, in this final section. Very flowing chicane though, if you can call it that. A bit slower through the 3rd part though, and he's not got a bad exit. He doesn't use all of the curve on the left hand side, and it doesn't feel like he needs to. And now the long run down the Ullman Straight and getting himself prepared for Sunset Bend, which is the most difficult corner on the circuit in my opinion. Braking while turning on bumps, very difficult indeed, and I don't think he's quite got that right, as he's a bit narrow on the exit as well. Coming up towards the line then, 8th place at the moment, and it's going to be an improvement, massive improvement actually, up to 5th position, but just looking at that lap time, I feel like he's got a lot more time in that.
And is looking pretty close as well. He's only 4/10 off that pole position, so the guys at the front are getting really close, and it is a fixed setup, so everyone does have the exact same setup, and obviously the rubber on the track is going to be pretty much the same because they're all out there at the same point in the track. So that's why it keeps it all nice and close. And it is certainly very close there between a lot of those drivers as they are now working to go out for their final attempts, because Vac has, because as I mentioned earlier, Vac went to the 4 laps, but he's noticed this and he's now on to 6 laps. And apologies for the freeze on the screen. We are trying to fix that, so we'll keep up to date with the live timing side of things as well, as the drivers now come out for they're finishing their 2nd laps and they're now going out onto their 3rd laps, at least after the quite long outlap here. But at the moment, Thomas Vac is leading the way with a 1:44.8. The only person in the 44s at the moment, which is Simon Frelick in 2nd place, Sepp Kowski in 3rd. Marek Godek has worked his way up into 4th position with a purple first sector on his last lap as well. Then obviously we saw Adrian Harazoa in 5th place. Gerard Bataille is in 6th. Brantholm is improving on this lap and he has actually now moved up to second place. So good job there from Brantholm, going up there to second place, and he's only 0.3 off the pole position as well. So I think, Ewan, it's actually going to be a pretty close race, looking at how close these qualifying times are.
Yeah, it is going to be a really close race. Just looking at this right now, very, very small margin separating all of these guys at the moment. But interesting to watch Thomas Vack through their last lap around. He was on a fly.
And welcome back to the qualifying for the third race of the Race IndyAM series by Formula Sim Racing. We just had a little technical issue there, but the qualifying has finished in the background, and we will get you those results in a couple of seconds' time. However, it was certainly, well, it still is going to be lining up for a really good race. Obviously, that qualifying was so close. The top six are pretty much 0.4 of a second apart. So I think, Ewan, we're going to see a really close race here. And I think especially the tyre strategy could be quite interesting with this track potentially ruining the tyres because of the bumps as well.
Yeah, it could actually physically rip them apart, to be honest, with the amount of bumps and cuts and different weird bits on this circuit. That makes it quite abrasive, actually. So we're expecting tyre wear to be quite high, although sometimes our expectations are a little bit off of what it actually is. They might actually be a really nice on their tyres because of the way they're reacting to the surface and whatever. So we'll wait and find out. But as ever, strategy is going to be such a key talking point in these races. It always is. I hope we don't bang on it about it too much, but it really is the key to winning one of these races. Getting the strategy right is very, very difficult, but when you do get it right, you can absolutely trounce everybody, as Thomas Vack demonstrated last time out. But here are the qualifying results. It's Vack again on the top, but Brantholm with a great drive there, actually, to get second place. That's really good for him. And then Frelix, Topalski, Godek making up the top five. Very close back to Adrian Harazoa as well. Bataya in 7th, Barbakov 8th. A little bit disappointed for him. I would have thought he would do a little bit better. Miram in 9th, and then Daniele Congi as unfortunately not able to take part in that qualifying session. He'll be starting from the back.
Yeah, he was a late arrival and therefore had to start from the back. But good to see him. I believe it's his debut in Formula Sim Racing. So yeah, welcome to him. We'll see what he does from the back of the grid. But yeah, the tyre strategy is a little bit more open in the IndyAM series compared to the Pro Series that you'll see later on the race's YouTube channel, where they're a little bit more sort of restricted. There's a lot more rules. However, here it's pretty much you can qualify on whatever you want and you can race on whatever you want as long as you use both of the two tyre compounds during the race. Obviously, we have the red alternate tyres and the black primary tyres. So that is something that they're going to have to judge. Obviously, I assume we're going to see a lot of people do a two-stop because saving for a one-stop is quite difficult. So if we see them do a two-stop, we assume they're going to use then two sets of the alternate tyres, which means they might only have to do sort of a splash and dash for the primaries. But then again, that depends how long you want your pit stops to be, because obviously changing tyres is way less than doing a full fuel tank. So all those things you have to balance up, where you drop back into traffic, things like that. It can be quite difficult for some of these drivers.
Yeah, it can be. We're often used to see, because it's an easy two-stop race and not quite able to do a one-stop, we often see the fighting for how little time, you can spend on those primary tyres, because obviously they're a little bit slower. And to be honest, the red stripe tyres, although they are much faster than the primaries, they also last quite a long time as well. So It's not really a factor, the tyre wear on those, that many of the circuits we've been to so far, and what we're expecting at the moment. We're not expecting those red stripe tyres to be running out really quickly, so it really is about spending as little time on that tyre as possible. And the strategy that we saw work out last time was 2 alternates straight away. The fastest tyre for the whole of the race by Thomas Vack, and then right at the end he came in for the primaries, and by that point he had so much of a lead that he was barely even being caught. So it was a really remarkable performance by him, and that is the strategy that I think a lot of people are going to adopt in this one now. 2 red striped stints to start off the race, and then a primary stint right at the end. However, if too many people go for that strategy, then they're going to be falling over each other, and they're going to be on top of each other all race, which is going to allow someone to come from behind, whether if they've been in clean air, to really take them by surprise almost, and win with a different strategy completely.
That is something that Thomas Vack got absolutely correct last time out, because every time that he made a stop, he always came out in clear air. So in the first stint, he managed to get himself a bit of a jump. And then because he actually went long, so he didn't go short, he actually went long, used a full tank of fuel, which meant that by the time everyone else had pit, he then basically dropped back into that gap. So then he had fresh air again for the second stint. Then it happened, obviously, again for the second round pit stop. So he spent the whole race in clean air. Which is, to be honest, that's pretty much why he won the race by such a gap. It wasn't just because he was quick, it's also because he nailed the strategy.
Yeah, he did, and that's what got him the clean air, and he was allowed to skip away with the race lead, really able to take the championship lead as well. Ferris Stanley obviously not here from second in the championship here today. Simon Frelich he's 10 points back on 52 with Barbakov, who's qualified quite a long way down from what I was expecting. He's in 4th place in the championship, also 10 points back, and then you got Stopowski a further 2 points back. As we mentioned, this point system just keeps things incredibly close. From 3rd all the way down to 30th, where the last place you can score points, it's just 1 point gaps. That is why it's getting so close in this championship, and why it's going to remain so close for the whole of this season. Not only in AM, but in Pro as well. Particularly though in AM, the gaps between everybody are just so small that, as I mentioned at the start of the broadcast, I think everybody is still in with the best, trying to win this championship. With Pro, you can kind of outline a few drivers who are already getting away from the rest 2 rounds in, but with AM it's completely open.
Yeah, certainly is, and I said that points also the way the points work, it keeps everyone close together. So it means as long as you're consistent, even today Thomas Vack has got pole position again, maybe he's gonna go and win the race, but if he makes a mistake and someone else jumps in there, as long as you're getting those consistent results, you will end up higher in the championship, because the gaps are not very big. In fact, then 1 point basically after, I think, 3rd position. So yeah, as long as you're consistently getting towards the front of the field, you should be looking good. As we now move towards the grid in the background, so we will remind you with the championship standings. So Thomas Vack has got a 3-point lead over Ferris Stanley, but remember, Stanley is not here today, which means Vack has effectively got a 13 points on Simon Frelich, and they will completely jump Stanley as long as they finish the race. So Stanley's got to drop down quite a bit in this standings for not attending here today. So it's basically a 13-point gap Vack has got.
Yeah, here's the grid order then. Vack championship leader and also pole position from that one for HM Engineering. Brantholm alongside him with Frelich and Stopowski on the 2nd row. Then Marek Godek is down in 5th position. Thought he would have done a little bit better, but he's solidly there in 5th alongside Adrian Harazoa. Bataya is in 7th for Royal Blue, and then somebody I missed is in 8th. Miram is in 9th, and then Kongia in 10th. And yeah, we're ready. 5 rows on this 10-car grid, and yeah, we're ready for the race at Sebring. 30 laps here. Going to be roughly just over 45 minutes, between 45 minutes and an hour anyway. Not quite a sprint race, but not endurance by any means. So it's going to be an interesting one as they make their way through turn 1. Looking very dark and gloomy actually, but it's not going to rain. And so these guys all making their way out. Interestingly, top 6 all on the red striped alternates. Whereas 3 of the bottom 4 are on the primaries. We'll see how that works out a little bit later on. But yeah, there's plenty of time to be talking about strategy throughout the race. It's going to be pure racing to start this one off by the looks of this.
And it was certainly very racy at the beginning of the Portland race 2 weeks ago as well. Barbkov managed to get himself up into second place, and he was fighting with Vak, but Vak did end up having too much pace for him in the end. So we'll have to see if Vak can continue that form that he's got. Obviously, he doesn't have Stanley to worry about either this race. So I think he's going to be looking pretty good for this race victory, but once again, we'll have to see what the strategy does. Now that we're getting to this midpoint in the season as well, people are going to learn the strategies of others. They're going to learn what worked, what didn't work. Obviously, on the results system, you can see what tyre strategies people did, so it's pretty easy to work out what is good and what is bad. So I wonder if some other drivers will try that technique of using the alternates at the beginning, then using a full tank of fuel. Because obviously the more fuel you take at the beginning is also the less fuel you have to fill up. Because if you start with half a tank, that means you have to then have more stationary time to get that fuel in the pit stops during the race as well. So certainly quite an interesting one, and we're looking forward to see what is going to happen. But as we come out of this corner, the drivers will now grid up and get into their formation. So drivers grid up, 80 kilometers an hour. Keep a nice close formation.
There's the call then, and the guys will do just as they're told. They're set up in their rows, of course, and slowing down as the pace car just accelerates away from the field. Thomas Vak not quite in control just yet. That's when he gets to the kind of tyres on the right-hand side, marking the entry to the pit lane. That is when he is in full control of the field. He can choose when to go between there and the start-finish line and see who he can catch off guard here. He's got Brantholm, the independent driver, right behind him, and then Freelich and Stopalski on the row just behind that. Freelich, of course, a member of Royal Blue, as is Adrian Harazawa, and just a little bit further down the order. But either way, through the final corner now, 30 laps at Sebring, and it looks like they are already under the control of Thomas Vak.
So let's see when Vak goes. Remember, he doesn't have to go straight away. He can wait. Just so anytime now he can call green. And we are going to see when is he going to go. And here he goes now. So he has got a good jump there. He's managed to jump away from Brantholm and Freelich. He's got himself a good lead coming into turn number one. Freelich trying to go down the inside to get up into second place, which he has done nicely. Brantholm there's having to drop back. Now Stepkowski's trying to battle in that midfield as well with Marek Godek, who's gone around the outside of turn number 3 into turn number 4, all sliding a little bit there with Barbkov as well. As we work our way through sector 1, this can be quite a tricky part because these curbs are so huge, you don't want to touch them. But Barbkov there at 6th place is on those prime tyres, and he's got ahead of the tyre on the alternates, so that could be good for him if he can stay in that position. However, Thomas Vak has kept the lead here coming through the first sector and is looking fairly good at the front.
It's such a tricky first sector, especially on the first lap, but Vak was able once again to get away from the field and get out of the carnage that could have ensued, but it was actually very clean in the background. Stopalski, unfortunately for him, moving down a few spots. He didn't get the greatest second part of the start, really. He was just pushed out wide through turn 1, and then he kept falling back even further again. Barbakov has made a good start, though, up a couple of positions there on the primaries, which is exactly what he wanted, but obviously with those guys on alternates around him, he is going to struggle to hold it there. But we have got good battles going on up and down the field. Brantholm is heading a bit of a train already with Godek and Stopalski, and Barbakov now is fending off Bataya, who he was always just hit the back there as Bataya, and now Adrian Harazawa is going to be right on the back of these guys as well. So a couple of trains beginning to form already, as it looks like Stopalski is already down the inside of Godek at the final corner, but Godek is holding it round the outside as up ahead. Brantholm goes wide. It looks like we're 3 wide off the corner with a bit of bumping as well. Goodness me.
Yeah, that bump on the final corner can catch people out. Seems like he catch Brantholm out. He was very slow off that final corner. Now Godek down the inside of Stepkowski. Tiny bit of contact there on the entry of the corner. Now Stepkowski is trying to keep round the outside through this kink of turn number 2 into turn number 3, the braking zone proper. And he's actually managed to get back past before. A little slide there, hits the cone on the apex, but he's kept that place in 4th position. So nice little battle brewing here in the midfield.
Yeah, it is a really nice battle. Nearly 3 wide heading down to turn 1, but I can see why they wouldn't want to do that. given how challenging it is even on your own, with all the bumps that it and all the challenges that it presents. But yeah, Stopalski is eventually up a place, and Brantholm has somehow managed to hang on to both of those, or that position there on the last step of the podium. As this battle with Barbakov just slowing down those two cars in behind ever so slightly, the two bluish cars. And yeah, it's an interesting battle as well, but you can visibly see already that Barbakov is slower than these guys, purely because he's got the other set of tyres on. But he'll be, and he's already being overtaken nearly there by Bataille, who's making a very optimistic move there. But yeah, you'll see Barbakov into the pit lane not before too long anyway. He's going to be trying to spend the least time on those. And he's lost his front wing. Bataille brakes too late, loses his front wing, and with the pace that he had, especially heading into corners, that looked like it was bound to happen.
And that's going to be really awkward for his fuel strategy as well, as now Barbakov is getting under threat from Andrea Maharazoa in the background. But we'll have a quick look at the replay. This is number 4, Gerard Bataille, coming down towards this section of corners into sector 3, just broke way later than Barbakov, got caught out a little bit, and he will have to go in for some repairs. So that's not going to help him at all, because if he has a full tank of fuel, he won't be able to fill up enough. So he's still going to have to make another 2 pit stops after this if he is unlucky. With which is unfortunate with how that worked out with his fuel strategy. But Adrian Maharazoa also got past Barbakov, so Barbakov drops down 2 places to 7th. As we look here, this battle for what is now 3rd place. Stepkowski on the back of Brantholm, coming round that Big Bend corner. As you say, it's pretty much just a straight for this unbelievably bumpy braking zone. It's pretty crazy. If you want to get this track yourself on the Steam Workshop, go ahead. But it's a bumpy one. Do be prepared for that, as it is notorious for. As now Stepkowski works his way towards Sector 3, Cunningham, or Sector 2 I should say, Cunningham corner. But he can't quite get close enough for an overtake just yet.
No, not just yet. And in the background, after that little incident we saw with Bataille, it was Barbakov just got overtook there by Adrian Maharazoa, and Bataille is now retired from the race, unfortunately. So that is a shame to see, but he was always bound to be a little bit screwed over by that mistake. It has to be said, though, that it was purely done by himself, really. He's only got himself to blame for that one, I'm afraid. It was just braking a little bit too late, and you could see it coming almost with the amount of speed he had onto the entry of corners. You can just visibly see it, really. Those red stripe tyres are just so much better on the way into the corner that it just makes it very, very difficult to manage. Unfortunately, he just misjudged it on that occasion, and now he's out of the race. But this battle for 3rd is beginning to heat up again. Godek is not that much slower than Brantholm, and he's not that much slower than Stopalski either, so he's always lurking. And if either of them make a mistake, then he's going to be right on top of them and through, probably. So he's just running his own race at the moment, while Brantholm and Stopalski, the 2 independent drivers here, just have a little bit of a battle.
And Andrea Maharazoa is already 7 seconds off the back of Godek, just showing how slow those primaries are, which is why most drivers are going to want to have the shortest stint possible on those prime tyres. As now Stepkowski's getting that slipstream down into the braking zone. Brantholm's having to defend actually on the inside. That could hinder his exit, as he won't be able to take quite as much speed on the mid-court now. Stepkowski is getting very close. The slipstream can be quite powerful once you get close enough. And now down the inside, is he going to be late enough on the brakes? So it's side by side. Now Stepkowski gets his nose just ahead and pushes him out on the apex. Although actually no, he's trying to stay side by side is Brantholm, but he can't keep it side by side as we come now into tower turn. And now Stepkowski up into 3rd place. But that battle has brought Godek into the fray as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what Godek was hoping for, really, those 2 in front, just to have a little bit of a fight. It didn't have to be much. You saw them go side by side for a corner or 2, and he's right there already. So, yeah, big gain there for Godek, and now he's right on the back of Brantholm, although he's not done Le Mans, the chicane, quite justice there. He's got a poor exit onto the Ullman Straight as well, so he's going to struggle to get the position down into Sunset Bend, that's for sure, even with the slipstream and the fact that he is gaining on Brantholm at the moment. He brakes very, very deep indeed, looking for a bit of a late apex maybe, and running a little bit wider, trying to get a good exit onto the front straight, maybe get a bit of a run, but nothing really doing. And when you're in the slipstream like this, he will be able to keep closer to Brantholm than he was able to keep to Stopalski, who definitely looks like the quickest out of these 3. whereas Brantholm and Godek look actually really quite well matched.
And something that's quite interesting for the fuel strategy here is you can only really get about 10, maybe 11 laps of saving, but probably 10 laps out of the fuel tank. So that's going to be quite close on the 30 laps also. So your prime stint actually isn't going to be that short, as Godek's having a bit of a look here, but it's not necessarily going to be quite as short, as this track in general uses a little bit more fuel per kilometre, or like per distance, than obviously at Portland, which is why the fuel strategy is a little bit more tight here actually, which is quite an interesting factor that we're going to have to see in, because that means your prime stint is going to have to be, you know, fairly long itself. And I've just been having a look at the front battle. Frelick is staying with Vac, so this lead hasn't gone by any means. As we get a replay here of Miram coming down to turn 7.
He's just gone a little bit very deep and realises a mistake, puts the brakes on even harder, and unfortunately he's just gone for a short bit of a spin, but he's back going again. Very long-winded 360 there, I have to say, but he's back on point in the right direction and on his way, and still in 8th position as well, but I think he'll be getting caught up a little bit. Actually, it's still 13 seconds, but still, he's got a lot of work to do to pull himself out of that position. But as you mentioned, incredibly bumpy braking zone, and if you just overrun it ever so slightly, there is that kind of access road, but you don't want to be hanging out there for too long at all. Obviously it's a long way round, so you know, it's a difficult braking zone, easy to get wrong, and that shows you what happens if you just get on the brakes ever so slightly too late.
And I've been in that runoff myself a few times over the years, and it's actually a lot longer than you would expect. You lose quite a bit of time by having to go into it, so maybe the 360 that he did actually saved him a little bit of time, because it is actually quite a bit longer down to that sort of second hairpin as such that they used to use back in the day, because Sebring has had many layouts. If you just have a quick search on the internet, you'll be able to see there's been so many different layouts of this track over the years. It's been around for quite a while. Obviously, I think it was a World War II air base, obviously, you know, 75 years ago now. So yeah, quite interesting that it's evolved into this great track. But with that, obviously the concrete section is quite bumpy. But a bit of a challenge for them this track, and certainly an enjoyable one so far.
Yeah, it is an enjoyable one. But yeah, let's not forget and I bet you've heard this a lot if you've ever watched a race here at Sebring about the bumps and whatever. It's because they've never resurfaced this track ever. It's still got the same concrete and asphalt and all of the little different surfaces they used to build this circuit. It's still the same as to when it was first formed. So, you know, that makes it incredibly bumpy. Because of the way these cars just push on the ground, they kind of make holes in the earth and stuff like that. It's a bit weird to kind of behold, and it's a bit weird to drive on sometimes as well, and a little bit difficult to watch sometimes, especially on board. You see the camera bobbing up and down for the constant time here as he runs down into turn 1 on board with Godek at the back. Oh, he's hit the back of Brandholm there. Wasn't expecting that one at all, but it just completely caught off guard, and now he's switching to the inside for turn 3. Good on the brakes, that very decisive on the brakes indeed, and he's up to 4th.
That was very close to a big accident. I think Godek just slightly misjudged the overspeed that he had there. He gained so much. Obviously, the closer you get, the slipstream gets very powerful, and he obviously just misjudged that slightly. But that could have been a huge accident if it was a bit later and Brandholm was already turning in. Oh, it's got it goes for a bit of a slide there on the exit. This is going to give Brandholm side-by-side opportunity now, coming on to this 3rd straight already of the lap, and he's now got the inside coming down into the braking zone for Cunningham, and he has got that position back. So Godek is going to have to do that all over again, hopefully with no contact this time. But yeah, that was so close initially into turn number 1.
Yeah, it was, and pretty close on the exit as well. The biggest traction slide I think I've ever seen there by Godek, actually. It's a difficult one because you're kind of turning as well where you're getting that traction down. I know with the curb that's kind of been thickened or widened in the last few years that it's a bit of a straighter exit than it used to be, but it's still turning ever so slightly, and that's what you saw there. Godek really struggling with it, and he's struggling on the traction again onto the Allman straight. Brantholm just able to pull out that margin with the slipstream. Obviously it's going to kind of come back together again like it's on an elastic band at the moment, and he's going to break pretty late. Oh, big slide for both of them, actually. Synchronized slide, but Brantholm is able to go a little bit wider and good traction this time for Godek. He's on the outside line. We've seen this one before. Last time he switched to the inside for the next corner. Turn 3, we'll see if he does the same. No, he's going to try and hang it round the outside at turn 1, and this time he's got it done as well.
Yeah, nice move there. That final corner is very tricky, and obviously if someone gets it wrong and you get it right, you can gain quite a bit of time or even position, as we saw. So finally Godek is up into 4th place. Let's see if he holds it this time. Obviously we thought he had the position before, but then he had the massive slide coming out of the hairpin, turn number 7. So we'll have to see if he does that again. But that is really the tricky part of this car, is the initial exits of the corners. The car can be quite snappy, and then obviously it has a massive twin turbo, so you get all this turbo lag as well. It's quite interesting how the car works on the exit of the corners. Can be quite a little tricky one to drive, but obviously most drivers are able to do it, but sometimes you can slightly overdo it like Godek there. But it looks like he's held on to it this time. 1.3 seconds already in the lead in that 4th position.
Yeah, he's consolidated that place now. Brantholm, after a great qualifying, I thought he did really, really well to get up to where he did, but didn't have a great start, lost a position immediately to Freelich, and now he's lost positions as well to Stopalski and Godek likewise, so starting to fall through the field just a little bit is Brantholm after such a great qualifying. 6th place is the best he's managed so far this season. It looks like he's going to better that for the moment, but don't forget, oh my goodness, that was close. But it looks like Adrian Harazoa is going to come back at him later on in the race, so it might not even be safe in that position as Brantholm is into the wall. We saw him have such a slide at Sunset Bend last lap around, and we were saying what a good job he's been doing so far. Well, unfortunately, it's just all been done. Let's see what happened going into Sunset Bend.
Yeah, comes in, he goes too fast. Yeah, by that point you can't save yourself. As you can see right there at the bridge, it is actually very tight. So the entry is this big open corner. You think you got all the space, but if you make it a little mistake, you go straight into that wall when obviously the tyre wall comes out of the bridge. So he is in the pit lane at the moment, as well as I believe that's Andrea Maharazoa is also in the pit lane. Fortunately, the damage repairs are actually fairly short. They're only about 4-5 seconds longer than a normal pit stop. So he is back out already in 8th place. Lost, probably about 4 or 5 seconds to Andrea Maharazoa. So he hasn't lost too much. He's still sort of in the shout of getting some decent positions. But obviously, you don't want to crash.
Yeah, sorry. It seems that Andrea Maharazoa as well has decided that he can do 11 laps on a fuel tank rather than 10, which is what we thought was the maximum. Because he's got 2 11-lap stints on those red stripe tyres to go now. We'll see what everyone else does here at the end of lap 9, especially Barbakov, who's on those primaries. But first pit stops have come. Brantholm was obviously forced to stop. Not much he could have done about that at all. But it looks like Andrea Maharazoa can do 11 laps on a stint of tyres and a stint of fuel, of course, a tank of fuel. So these guys at the front, Vak and Freelich, in their battle, which is just trading lap times, punch for punch at the moment. Goes on to lap 10, which we will see if they can go one more, which could be possible, but it does make the fuel and the strategy window very small if these guys can only actually manage 10 or 11 laps. Yes,
it is quite an interesting one. Obviously, we had the formation lap, which is a lap, but it uses a bit less fuel, well, quite a bit less fuel. So that also you have to balance into your calculations. So yeah, quite a lot for these drivers to think about. Obviously, it makes sense to split it up pretty much into 3 10-lap stints. Because obviously if you pit 1 lap early, as you say, you then have to do potentially 2 11-lap stints or 1 11-lap stint, which might need a little bit of saving. So if you want to do an 11-lap stint, this first stint is probably the best one because of that formation lap using a bit less fuel. So I would assume we're going to see a lot of drivers in at the end of this lap. Because obviously what you'll see is lap 10. However, obviously the formation lap is an additional one. So this is already their 11th total lap of usage, because fuel obviously starts as soon as they get on the grid. So that is everything they have to add into their calculations. And the cool thing here is that Freelich is only a couple of seconds behind. And if Vak makes any sort of mistake or difference with the doing a wrong decision with the strategy. Freelik could be through here.
Yeah, definitely. He's right there. To be fair, either of them make a mistake and it's gone to the other, really. That's how close this is at the moment. Not over by any means. If you're just tuning in, seeing Vac on the top step, you would be thinking that it's over already. But big lock-up into the pit lane there, and they are both in, as you expected, should I say. So let's see what tyres are they going to go on for. We're expecting it to be red stripe tyres. We're expecting everyone in behind to follow them into the pit lane, and they have Stopalski, Godek, and Barbakov. Just Godek. Barbakov hasn't got to the pit lane yet. But still, they're all in the pit lane. We're expecting them all to be in anyway. And this should be another set of red striped tyres for both Vac and Freelik and everybody at the front, I think.
Yeah, that looks pretty set that they're all going to do 2 alternates first, and then obviously that means they have to use the primaries in that final stint, but they want to get the track position now. They want to have the faster tyres now. They want to get themselves in a position so that when they put on those slower tyres, and as we can see with how much time Barbakov has lost, because he's coming in now, he's lost so much time in this first stint, so much time, 20 odd seconds in fact. So that is just how much slower they can be. They're literally 1 to 2 seconds lap slower, depending on the driver.
Yeah, exactly. And you're seeing it right now as well with Andriy Harazoa, who has been out there on primaries as well. He's 10 seconds back from 4th place Marek Godek. That's a lot of work for him to do throughout the day as well. He's jumped Brantholm though, as Andriy Harazoa, obviously because of that front wing change that the Swede had to do. So that's why those positions have reversed. But he's end of this race is Andriy Harazoa. He's really going to be very... Oh my god, that was a big slide for Simon Freelik, but he's caught it. He's going to have a dreadful run up this kind of straight now up towards Le Mans, but goodness me, that was a big slide and a good catch as well.
Yeah, that's one of the better corners if you want to have a bit of a drift on purpose. However, obviously you don't really want to be doing that all the time, because one day you won't catch it and you will end up in the barrier. But I'm now looking at Brantholm, who's now out again on these alternate tyres, coming through up into Sector 3. And yeah, he's got a little bit to make up. Obviously, losing that front wing lost him some extra time, which is why he's a bit behind Andriy Harazoa, as well as obviously the time he lost from having to sort himself out from the spin. So could be quite costly, because he's now a little bit further away from those guys battling for the podium position.
Yeah, he was right with Stopalski and Godek fighting over a top 5 at the very least. And unfortunately for him, that is no more. He's, as I mentioned earlier on, best position so far, 6th place. Still, I guess everybody's still in the championship, obviously, but it's continuing to fall away from him. And Vac and Freelik are quickly establishing themselves as 2 of the main protagonists for this now. Vac hasn't finished off the podium this season. He's not finished below 2nd place. He was runner-up to Forrest Stanley at the first race and then trounced everyone last week. 2 weeks ago. So, he's not finished off the podium just yet. Freelik has. He had a bit of a disaster at Portland, finishing 7th. But he's right back on form here at Sebring and actually reeling in Vac ever so slightly. It's 1.7. That's closed in by nearly half a second to what it was this time last lap.
Yeah, closing in ever so slightly. And interesting, once again, Vac already has his pit light on, I can see. So he's obviously planning himself. Oh, I can hear in the background, I think there's a spinner just next to where they are. You can hear something in the background, you see yellow flags. Who was that that's gone for a bit of a spin? It was Daniele Cognier in P9. He went for a bit of a spin there, coming out of Le Mans corner, I would assume. Is one of the trickier parts of the track, and he might actually be having some issues there, because he was already going fairly slowly and then had a bit of an awkward spin there. But yeah, he's down in 9th place, and once, as we said before, he will still be getting some decent points there for 9th place. He can get himself a bit higher up the championship, obviously this being his first race. But now we look back at Freelik, who's gained another half a second on that Sector 3 on the last lap. So he's really starting to close in now, and I think there's going to be a big battle here as we get towards the next few stints.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a bit of battle, but I can't really explain why this gap is coming down between Vak and Freelik. It's a little bit bizarre at the moment, really, because they've both got the same tyres on, they're the same age, the same compound, same everything, pretty much, and Freelik, to my mind anyway, is driving a little bit more erratically. If anything, Vak looks faster, but he's clearly not at the moment, being reeled in quite rapidly at the moment by Freelik. Now just over 1 second, dipping below a second into that braking zone for the first time. So it is quite a quick turnaround here. Freelik is apparently driving quicker, and well, he just looks a little bit more erratic to me, and that's why it's confusing me slightly, because, as I mentioned, same compound, same age, tyres, everything is the same. Fuel loads are the same, I'd imagine. But Freelik, despite driving like this, is still managing to catch Vak. But you're right, we are going to see a big battle here when this gap does close. And I just hope they don't come together, because there's going to be a lot of guys in behind waiting to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, that would certainly make it interesting if the championship leader gets involved in a bit of an incident. But obviously we know Freelik from the Academy Series this year, and Vak from the World Championship. So we both know them from before, and they both had pretty decent seasons in the 2020 season that finished back in August, 2 months ago now, actually, the season finished. And yeah, Freelik is getting a bit closer, but he didn't gain too much in the end on that lap, but he's certainly closing him in. And one thing that can be quite interesting with a car like this is because the primaries are a little bit slower, I do wonder if anyone doesn't practice them so much. Because obviously drivers, they want to set the fastest laps possible in practice and all this sort of stuff. So they don't necessarily practice on the slower compounds. So it'll be interesting if there's a differential in the pace when we get to those primaries.
Yeah, that could actually be the case there, if you think about it, especially if you're practicing qualifying, for example, you're going to be because they're obviously quicker. So you'd definitely have more experience on those red stripe tyres, because there's two disciplines you need to practice for them. You need to practice the race pace with them. You need to practice qualifying well with them. So that's why they would have more experience with it. But some people, yeah, you're right, might just totally discount those primaries and just not practice with them at all. And then it could really be their undoing. It will be interesting to see if that is the case. And we'll make a note of the gaps when they do come in compared to at the end of the race, to see really who has been doing their homework and practicing on those whiteboard tyres. And that could really decide the race in the end, with gaps this close. Anything, think putting an hour of practice in here. That was another slide for Freelik. But yeah, just putting an extra hour or two of practice here and there could be the difference. When these small margins, you just get that extra piece of consistency, and it could end up winning you the race.
Yeah, as you say, that extra couple of hours practice can generally be the sort of the turning point in a battle. It's kind of a known thing during or in quite a few of the R Factor leagues, the R Factor 2 leagues that there are about. Some people are just like, why is he so much quicker than me, blah blah blah. But the fact is, apart from like the top guys, it's probably just because they do more practice. You have to get the feel for it in R Factor 2. The car likes to slide a little bit, so you have to get your feel of just getting on the limit of the sliding without spinning or without losing too much time. And stuff like that only happens with practice. Only when you get comfortable with the car, when you do laps, you get used to certain corners. And not just doing qualifying laps either, feeling the car on the heavier fuel, on the harder primary tyres, all that sort of stuff. Those extra couple of hours are generally what can, as I said, make a battle go one way or the other.
That's another slide for Freelik, and a legitimate mistake this time, actually. He's just dropped to over 2 seconds back. But yeah, one more thing on that, how close it is at the moment. When you get to this kind of level, the talent difference between people gets very small. So there's basically no difference in actual natural talent. It's just about the other factors starting to come into play. The amount of practice you do, most four of them. Obviously, the people if you have someone doing the strategy for you, then I guess that would maybe give you an advantage. But for some people, that's a disadvantage. People actually just do it themselves. And some people are quite good at just doing it themselves. They don't need it. So it's when you get to this kind of level, it's those other things really start to come into play, and one of them is, of course, practice and making sure that you're the most consistent possible on these on those tyres. Freelik is pushing, so I just wonder if he's pushing too hard at this point, because he's driving so erratically. He's sliding all over the place. It's very entertaining, I have to say. I'm loving watching him at the moment, but he's not going quite as consistently quickly as he needs to.
Yeah, he's lost about a second in the last 2 laps as well, so he has started to lose a tiny bit of time. Obviously, with only being big slide, can he catch it? Yes, he can. Good job there, Simon. But yeah, that's probably a little bit too much. But that just shows you how much he's really pushing to try and get this race win. As to be fair, most of us would when you see the race win just ahead of you, but a bit of a lock-up once again coming into this corner. So you might be right. He might be slightly over pushing, but you do have to push this car to really get the most out of it. Having a little bit of slide on the exits is good, but as I mentioned before, it is on that initial application of the throttle on the exit, it can be quite difficult to control. But he's certainly pushing, and it's, as you said, it's quite entertaining to watch. So hopefully he can catch up. But he is losing a tiny bit of time, although I think he's caught up a couple of tenths on this lap. So he is getting there. But it just needs to, as you say, get consistently improving those times, because obviously there's no point gaining a second and then losing 2 with going off track.
Yeah, exactly. He's taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back at the moment. He needs to start just going forwards and not backwards anymore. That can only be done with consistency, which obviously doesn't happen when you're sliding it into the corners, just totally on the rear brake, rear end first into the hairpin. That is not a good way to do it. That's what Freelik was doing though on the last lap around. This time he's a lot more control through turn 1. Hopefully this is the start of a much more controlled lap here from Freelik. He's nicely through this first sector, which is quite difficult and quite fiddly. With those kind of curbs on each side of you all the time, it's kind of like having 2 walls either side of you, really. It's kind of threading the needle a little bit, and it's a little bit fiddly to get your way through there. But now let's go back to the hairpin again. The bumpiest braking zone on the circuit, and he's actually broken a little bit too early there, because he's right on the curb on the right-hand side, and he had to have 2 goes at turning in, because otherwise he was going to turn in too early.
Yeah, probably took it a little bit easier with the big half spin almost that he had last lap. So yeah, it's excuse me. He's obviously trying to be a little bit more controlled to try and catch up. But let's see if out of this corner, if he's really lighting it up again, because he does like, that was a little bit neater actually. He only had a bit of a wiggle because of the grass. So he is trying to calm down a little bit, but that gap is certainly fluctuating. And to be fair to him, I would say Vak in general is a quicker driver. So obviously being in the World Championship where Freelik is in the Academy Series. So I would say if he manages to beat him, that'd be a very good job. But he might have to do something around the pit stops, maybe going a lap longer or something like that. That might help his strategy slightly. But I think as long as he is putting on the pressure, maybe Vak will end up making a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Vak is, on paper, definitely the better driver at this point. He's had 2 point-scoring finishes in the World Championship in his career, and he's even had a podium in the Pro Series as well last year. He's a very good driver indeed, whereas Freelik only really joined the Academy Series at the end of last season, doing the last 5 or 6 races, scoring points in nearly all of them, by the way, doing very well, considering how late he joined, halfway through the season. But either way, on paper, he is definitely the slower driver and really taking it to Thomas Vak, who's being put under a lot more pressure than he was this time 2 weeks ago. He was out at the... Oh, that's a slide for Godek as well. Vak was good 30 seconds in the lead by this point last race, and Freelik is giving him a big run for his money on this occasion, partly because he's actually up there this time. He was stuck in traffic at Portland, but this time Freelik is right up there and challenging for the win. And Vak has actually got some competition here. It's going to be interesting to see in this final stint how this gap changes when they put on those primary tyres, if it changes at all, of course. They've been so evenly matched so far that I won't be surprised if it doesn't change.
Well, yeah, they've certainly been evenly matched, and it was a good point you mentioned there. Vak did have pretty much like a 20-30 second lead by this point in the race last time. And even if you remove him out of the way, the likes of Stepkowski, Godek, and even Andrea Maharazoa, who started on those prime tyres, they're sort of still in that window as well. So this track has certainly been a bit closer in that regard, which is quite interesting actually, because Portland you would say is almost a more easy track, but that's just that's just how it's worked out. As we're now on board with Andrea Maharazoa, who will obviously have another set of those alternates to go, so he's going to be quite quick in this final stint when quite a few of the other drivers are going to go to the primaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the best line through Sunset Bend there, but given the mistakes that we've seen so far for these guys, I think he's quite scared of running it in deep there and doing a bit of a Brandholm, because if you do go a little bit too late on the brakes, trying to recover it and slow down even more where you're going over those bumps and trying to turn at the same time, you just end up going straight on, to be honest. So that's what Brandholm did, and that's what Andrea Maharazoa is trying to avoid. Although he is pulling away from the 6th place driver at the moment, not really catching those 4 in front though. Excuse me, or just kind of stuck there really in no man's land. Got a big gap in front, big gap behind. Although he doesn't look like he's going to take home a very respectable 5th place like he did at Indianapolis. But either way, it's not the most entertaining race for him at the moment, with the amount of the amount of seconds that are between him and the next car and him and the car behind.
And looking at Frick, he's now 3 seconds off, so I think he's lost this, this sort of, maybe not motivation, but the ability to get past. But we're coming to lap 20, which means I think either this lap or the next lap, these drivers will be coming in for their 2nd round of pit stops. I would assume none of these drivers have been saving, because they've certainly been pushing. They've been having a fight without being directly next to each other, because they've been pushing each other so hard at the front. However, maybe someone behind will do something a little bit different. Always Step Kelsey goes for a big slide coming out of the final corner. So drivers really like to spin those tyres up and go deck, in fact.
Whoa!
He's 3 seconds behind, but he's not completely gone for that 3rd place.
Freeling was right on the grass once again through turn 1. He is pushing. You can't fault him for not trying throughout this one. But as we mentioned earlier on, is he trying too hard? That is the question mark we have over him, really, as Andrea Maharazoa is into the pit lane now for his 2nd set of alternate red stripe tyres. He can do one more 11-lap stint. It seems that 11 laps on a tank of fuel is his limit. That's what he can do, and that's what he has been doing, as Brandholm is also in. He looks like he can do 11 laps too, as they're both in red stripe tyres for the Royal Blue driver. Although for the independent Brandholm, it is going to be primaries, and it's going to be a little bit miserable for him as well, because he's going to get caught behind those, or from those behind, or by those from behind, should I say. These leaders now coming up towards the final sector for the 20th time now. And it's going to be interesting to see if they come into the pit lane. Can they go one more lap? Because if they can, then they will do, just to avoid the primaries.
Yeah, and also if you go a bit longer, then you potentially have to take a lap less fuel, which could save you a second or 2 seconds in the pit stop, and therefore you maybe jump a position or so if you're close enough. But either way, we're coming round to there being 10 laps to go, and that continues. And so does Freelich.
Big accident down at the bottom of the circuit at the hairpin, with Brandholm missing his front wing and his rear wing. Let's see what happened. He was embroiled in a battle with Barbakov. It was Stein trying to get through here. A big run, of course, in the slipstream. What happens here? Oh dear, he's pulled to the inside, tries to let Barbakov through, but Barbakov didn't quite realise, and he hits the back of Brandholm, sending him into the wall on the right-hand side. And that is an unfortunate incident for Brandholm. He was just trying to let the other driver through, and in the end it's turned out disastrously for him.
Who was it? Barbakov? Oh no, it was Bataya at the beginning, wasn't it? Bataya ran into the back of Barbakov, missing braking points, but that looks a bit weird actually. It almost looked like Brandholm broke too early. Bit difficult to say from just seeing it once there, but that was certainly a little bit weird. I think Brandholm was potentially trying to make it an easy overtake, but Barbakov misjudged that, and maybe that will end up in the stewards room as well. But Brandholm is now DNF from the race, and unfortunately, that means he's going to be getting no points here. As Barbkov now comes round into the pit lane, he obviously needs to take another pit stop. And I assume he'll go to another set of those alternate tyres because there's nothing else that he can really do. But yeah, that's pretty much just another stint that he has to do to the end. And that's going to lose him quite a bit of time. And he's going to be way off the next few cars. So that pretty much seals his position as Freelik. Freelik has got no front wing.
He's also on the red stripe tyres for some reason, so he didn't take the primaries there. He's it must be intending to do another stop for some reason, but he's lost his front wing somewhere. Where has he done it? Here he is in turn 3, 4 and 5, coming out of this corner now. Obviously pushing, trying to get the undercut on Vac, but one slide too many for him on this occasion. He's been hanging out the rear for the whole of the race, but this time he's just overstepped the mark ever so slightly. Actually, did he come into the pit lane? I don't think he actually came into the pit lane, did he? That's why. I thought he pitted. I saw him down the order, but I thought he pitted for more red stripe tyres, but he's actually just spun and lost his front wing, and now he's going to be behind and battling to get a podium at least here.
Yeah, so just as Barbkov was having his accident, I just mentioned that Vac and Freelik managed to do an 11-lap stint, so they stayed out an extra one, which is the exact thing that you want to do, because if you can save a lap and be on the primaries for a lap less, that will in general be quicker, because they are, as we mentioned before, about a second to 2 seconds lap slower. So Vac was able to do that. Freelik obviously making that mistake, so staying out a lap longer for him might not have been actually the best option. He's come out into 4th place, so still not too bad, but he's got a 12-second gap now to Stepkowski. Stepkowski has actually been jumped into pit stops by Godek, who's now up into 2nd place because Stepkowski had to reverse to get around Freelik, because Freelik was at a really awkward angle with his pit garage. So Stepkowski lost a couple of seconds, and Godek is now up into 2nd place. As we keep our eyes on this battle between the two Royal Blues as well for that 4th and 5th. So that could be even worse news for Freelik, as Andrea Maharazoa is on those alternate tyres. So it could go from bad to worse, as well as losing that podium position. He might lose that position to his teammate.
Yeah, it's all starting to fall into place for Thomas Vac, who's got a 20-second lead. But yeah, Freelik is going to have to battle now to stay inside the top 4. After that battle, and I'm sure there's going to be one for 2nd place between Godek and Stepkowski, since Stepkowski had to get out around Freelik and lost a bit of time in doing so. So down into the chicane once again, and we're going to see now if Andrea Maharazoa is going to overtake his teammate, as Freelik is still out sideways. He just pulls to the right hand side, lets off the throttle ever so slightly and lets him through. They're not even going to fight this one, because their teammates, of course, they're just not even bothering to fight it. Yeah,
the Royal Blue team there, they're a good team, good guys, and they know that even though Freelik is the one in the championship, Andrea Maharazoa is going to have to probably go quite slow to sit behind, and for the sake of what is, I believe, just 1 point between 4th and 5th place, by that point, there's no real reason for them to do that. Andrea Maharazoa can see what happens up ahead, maybe get a podium if there's an issue between Stepkowski and Godek, because they're only about 1.5 seconds apart, and we still have quite a few laps left in this race, enough at least to catch and make an overtake. So Godek might look good for that 2nd place at the moment, and he's done, to be honest, he's done a good strategy to get himself there, but maybe Stepkowski's going to come back to him in these last few laps.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how the gap changes. Just a little bit wide actually for Godek there, but Stepkowski didn't exactly hit the apex either, as these guys, big slide as well for Stepkowski, and that has really done for him there. Lost nearly 0.5 second in that fight, but Godek goes wide again. It's a really seesawing battle at the moment that these two are going through, and it's quite difficult to work out where the next move is going to come from. As off the road there, just getting out of the way, presume that was Konya once again, trying to move out of the way of everybody, and doing a good job of it actually as well. Very almost evasive action of those in behind, just trying not to interfere with anything going on, which is good. But yeah, down into Sunset Bend now. Going to be 7 laps to go when we get past the line this time, and Stepkowski has got a big job on his hands now to catch up to Godek. These two were so well matched, and they are so well matched out there at the moment on those tyres, that it's going to be difficult to close that margin, even though it's only 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds is a lot when you're on the same fuel, same tyres, etc. You obviously have to have the difference in the driving. Oh, as he goes off there on the exit of turn number 1. Got to be careful with the track cuts as well. They're actually not too bad on this track, but obviously if you do go off the track, you will be getting track cuts, and I believe it's only 3 before you get a penalty. So you do have to be careful there. But no, he's going along fine. But yeah, 2 seconds. Probably quite difficult to do, especially if he makes a couple of mistakes like he has in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same situation almost as we were in between Vak and Freelik in the second stint, really. Stopalski is quick and he's got the pace to catch up to Godek, but he needs to use it consistently. He needs to be doing those and not doing things like that. Missing the apex at Cunningham Corner. He needs to be hitting the apex a little bit more. And obviously getting his lines right and all set up. Again, missing the apex just a little bit through Tower and a little bit too much of a slide on the exit as well. So if he can collect it all together and really get these lap times punched out lap after lap, then he will be able to close into Godek. However, he's not doing that at the moment, and it looks like he's just a little bit more inconsistent on those primaries than he was on the Red Stripe alternate tyres.
Yeah, the primaries are quite difficult to drive, to be honest. As we mentioned before, they are slower, but obviously that's because they got less grip. So it does make it quite a bit difficult to drive these cars, especially this corner here. You see the wheel, yeah, just a tiny bit of opposite lock. As it really likes to step out. This car really does like to spin up, especially when you get into higher RPM. And on those primary tyres, obviously makes it that tiny bit harder as well. But one thing that's actually quite good news is Vak at the front isn't just creaming the field. Obviously, he's 20 seconds ahead now because of various things that have happened. But he's 20 seconds ahead of Godek, and he has been for the last couple of laps. So Godek has still got pretty decent pace here, which is good news for next weekend. We go to Virginia for the 4th race, the final race of the season, being a road course as well. So maybe Godek can finally actually probably go for a race victory next time out. We'll have to find out. But he's not losing too much time to Vak at this moment. Although obviously it's too big of a gap to get with only 5 laps to go now.
Yeah, it is a very big gap, and it's not going to close without some severe problems for Thomas Vak in front. He could probably pit and still come out and put on the red stripe tyres and still win, probably. But obviously he's not going to do that. He's just going to consolidate this race lead he has at the moment. And actually, Godek was faster out of the blocks than Vak was. The gap was 20 seconds when they came out, and it dipped below 19 for one brief moment. But then slowly Vak has found his feet with these tyres and with this car track combination. All of the things kind of falling into place for him at the moment. And that is why he's got such a big lead. 5 laps to go for him now. And laps of honour really at this point. Unless he makes a mistake, he is going to win this race. Obviously that's not out with the realms of possibility, but the way he's driven so far, it is hard to see him losing it from here.
It is going to be, quite difficult for him to actually lose it. Because once you get this far in the lead, you might as well just take, a couple of percent back and know that you are in a good position. And obviously winning last time out, he definitely knows how to win. He's not scared of winning. But you don't want to make any silly mistakes, because mistakes is what cost you. As we've seen with quite a few people today, actually, there's been quite a few little mistakes here and there. So obviously, Freelik made quite a few, but obviously that one fundamental mistake has cost him a podium here, because he's now 6 seconds behind, almost 7 seconds behind his teammate there in 5th place as well. So he's really struggled in this final stint or two. So yeah, mistakes are definitely what cost you.
So yeah, Andrea Harazoa is not that far away from Stopalski. He's really closing in now. 8 seconds it was. He's halved that margin to what it was when he overtook Freelik all those laps ago. About 5 laps ago it was now. So this is starting to close, and I wonder if there's enough laps. It's very, very close, but I don't know if there's going to be enough time for Andrea Harazoa to get onto the podium. It will be a great podium for him if he can actually manage it. He's not done so this season. The best he's done is a top 5 back at Indianapolis. We'll see if he can go a couple better on this occasion. It is going to be his best result this season as it stands, but it could be even better for him here if he is really fast towards the end of this stint, and I think he will be. I think he's going to continue on with this pace throughout the whole of the rest of the race, but is there enough laps left on the table? It's going to be very tight, but I think that he's going to get there and then run out of laps and run out of corners to actually make the move itself.
Yeah, taking the primaries in that first stint does seem to have quite a good effect with your speed at the end of the race, but he's got a lot of track position. It means you're always behind. So yeah, we'll have to see if he can get there. To be honest, I do believe he will be able to potentially get there with the way it's working out. But obviously, getting there and overtaking are different things. However, sometimes when you're a little bit further down, it is good to try the alternate strategy, because either way, he probably would have finished in a similar position. So he might as well try and give himself an opportunity at the end of the race. As we now jump on to Thomas Vac there, getting past the traffic of Perseus Miram, who is a lap down, well, I think it's 2 laps down actually now, to the leader. Has struggled a little bit to get on the pace this season. He obviously did a couple of academy races at the end of the 2020 season as well, so he's still sort of getting to grips with it. But yeah, Vac here looking very controlled through this sequence of corners. So he's obviously feeling very comfortable with the car.
Yeah, and he looks comfortable with the car as well. A lot more consistent, a lot more controlled than everybody around him. We saw with Freelich the contrasting driving styles. Vac, very unspectacular, but also very, very efficient and very quick. Whereas Freelich was a little bit more flamboyant and able to, you know, entertain us all. But unfortunately, his strategies really not played out there with the spin and hit into the wall. You just wonder what he could have done if he was still in the race at the front at this point. Would he have caught up to Vac and actually challenged him for the race win? I personally think that probably not at this point. He's not losing any time to Godek and Stopalski, and they're not losing any time to Vac either, but I still think that Freelich would have had a long way to go to catch up to Vac and actually pass him, or at least attempt to. You know, it was a tall order. It was always going to be a tall order, but it was made even tougher by the fact that he had that big spin, and now he's only going to get 5th place at best for his efforts, which is a real unjust reward, I think. But, you know, you make your own luck, really, and he's been off, had a spin, had a crash, had to change his front wing, and so that's why he's all the way down the order, but he's still going to be very disappointed with it.
Yeah, there's a good saying, you make your own luck. And especially in racing, this happens. Obviously, some drivers every now and again, you know, they say, oh, you know, I'm lucky, you know, crashes happen, you know, all this sort of stuff. But sometimes it does just come more. He has a big slide there.
He hasn't learned, has he?
Yeah, well, it's certainly good fun to drive like that. It's obviously, but if you want to win a race, you have to sometimes just have a little bit more calmness about you and about your driving style. Because obviously being all crazy on the wheel or on the throttle isn't obviously the fastest way of driving. So yeah, as I said, sometimes you do make your own luck, and unfortunately today he made a couple of mistakes, which is why he's down here. Going to be losing quite a few points. Actually, I believe that's going to be I think it's 25 points for 5th place, which means he's going to lose 10 points to Vac, which is quite a lot considering he was already 13 behind. So he's going to be roughly in the region of 23 points behind, which is quite a lot with only 2 races remaining after this. So yeah, not the best, but he will have to see what he can do in the final 2 races after this one. But we're now on to the penultimate lap, and Vac is looking very good. However, once again, Godek has kept there. So I'm going to say if Godek can sort out the qualifying and get himself in a better position at the start of the race, I think in Virginia next week he can probably challenge for the win.
Yeah, probably. It's a very different circuit, of course, and maybe he'll be even stronger there, maybe not, but we'll find out, I guess. As a very, very different circuit, we're yet to see how Thomas Vac will do around there, because, oh my goodness, he is definitely having fun out there at the moment, not pushing 100% and just not messing around, but playing around with the car just a little bit right now. But yeah, it's a tall order for Godek to get anywhere near Vac, and it's a tall order for anybody to get near him, because it looks like Vac, while he doesn't have the greatest pace on the primaries, he's so far in front by the time he puts them on that it doesn't actually matter too much normally, or it hasn't done for the last 2 races. It did matter back in Indianapolis where Ferris Stanley was able to actually take the victory. But that was a shortened race, don't forget. We may see later on what would have happened if that shortened race hadn't been shortened. If it had run the full distance, would Vac have actually won that one? Would he have overhauled Ferris Stanley? It's unsure. Obviously, we'll never know. But at the moment, Vac is displaying that he could have actually won all 3 races so far this season if that race hadn't been shortened. Although, once again, you never know. And he's certainly one to be reckoned with throughout the rest of this season. He'll be leading the championship by quite a long way. And he's going to be in the driving seat now. One hand on the trophy almost at this early stage.
Certainly is, and we haven't actually mentioned it yet, but the prize for the AM category is basically a free entry to next season. So obviously that is worth participating for, and if someone like Vac can get it, also for if he races in the World Championship again, then that is going to be obviously the most money saving as well. So that's going to be good for him, and it looks like, even though Godek has caught another second, actually, I think as long as Vac can keep it nice on this final lap, he's going to take victory here in Sebring, and it's certainly a deserved result.
Yeah, definitely. It's really closing up, by the way, in that battle for third. We may end up seeing this battle as they come out of the hairpin and running up towards those final few corners. Andriam Harazoa might have a go into the hairpin, or anywhere, the final corner. He might have a go anywhere, really. It's going to be last chance saloon and last lap, of course, as well. But Vac is just taking this one home at the moment, just playing around ever so slightly on this lap. He's not driving 100%, sliding it out once again, and now heading towards the final corner for the final time, and to take home another very deserved victory.
Yeah, certainly deserved. He was very, very good last time out in Portland, and he was certainly looking like he was going to win the race, even with Freelich there. But obviously that issue for Freelich has given him the victory. However, Vac has done such a good job. He takes another victory this season and extends his championship lead there with a win here in Sebring. Marek Godek will have a very good result there in second place. Obviously, has almost been gifted it a little bit. Now, Andrea Harazoa, can he get Stepkowski to the line in the final corner? One more lap and he might have. However, Stepkowski keeps his podium. Andrea Harazoa, with that alternate strategy, getting very close there at the finish. Freelich, that unfortunate mistake that he made, trying to push as hard as he could to get to Vac, but he couldn't. So he will finish in 5th place. Probably puts him out of the running for the championship now. However, all is to play for with the way the point system works. Barbkov will finish in 6th. Miram has already finished a lap down in 7th, and Konya will finish a lap down in 8th place with your 2 DNFs of Brantholm and Bataya. But you got to say, Vac absolutely deserves this, and he's certainly got the pace here in the IndyAM Championship.
Yeah, it's hard to see him being knocked off top spot in the championship as well. He's going to have a big lead heading into the final couple of races now, because second place in that race, Marek Godek, started the day way down the order in those standings. He got second place 2 weeks ago at Portland. He's got another second place here, but he's so many points adrift. It's going to be very difficult for him to get anywhere near Stopalski as well. So basically everybody who's finished well in this race is a long way adrift, and they are going to be after this one as well. But here's your full results in full view, even though there's a couple missing because they didn't actually finish before we pulled them up. However, they will be there. But yeah, just confirmation that Vac has taken that victory, that commanding victory, you have to say. Unsure whether Freelich would have challenged him without that mistake, but he made that mistake, so we can't really speculate any further on that. It's just not his day, unfortunately, down in 5th place. For him, championship challenge probably over. It might be over for everybody as well. We'll definitely find out next week at VIR, but anything can happen. So it's well worth tuning in, and well worth finding out what happens, because it's still 2 races to go and anything can happen.
Yes, still plenty of action to happen in this AM Championship. Obviously, VIR next week, and then 2 weeks after that, on the 1st of November, will be the final for the AM Championship. So before we then go, obviously, to the Indy 300, where everyone is involved from both championships. So this has been the IndyAM Championship by FSR, brought to you by SimLab, IMB Raceway, and 3D Wrap. So do go check out the Pro Championship. That will be on the Races YouTube channel in about 40 minutes time from the end of this at 16:40 GMT. But that rounds up from round 3 of the AM Championship here from Sebring. And until the Pro Series or until next week in VIR, we wish you a very warm goodbye.